Today's episode is brought to you by the North American Network Operators Group, NANOG. NANOG meets 3 times a year, and the next gathering is NANOG 96 in San Francisco, February 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, 2026. Packet pushers will be there to hear excellent educational talks from packet people who are getting it done. Register today at nanog.org.
Welcome to Total Network Operations, the project with a podcast dedicated to hardworking network operators like you who deliver all the packets. Our mission is simple, to bring out great ideas in NetOps. I'm your friendly neighborhood podcast host, Scott Robon. Well, today, let's talk about AI for NetOps. It's not just coming, it's here. There are tools to use, skills to acquire, and we want to talk about what's needed for highly certified network engineers to skill up in AI. What certification opportunities or paths exist? What developments do we think we're going to see here? And to cover all this ground, we have a great panel discussion assembled today. First, we have my fellow podcaster, partner in crime, super collaborator, Eric Chou of Network Automation Nerds. Eric, welcome.
Hey, thank you, Scott. It's great to be here. I saw the All-Star lineup and Scott. I'm just kidding. I saw the All-Star lineup, period. And I can't help but to insert myself into the conversation. It's great to be here. Well,
glad to have you. And, we've done a couple of these on cert paths. And like you had me on Network Automation Nerds. I love it when we get to do, the Marvel team up or pick your favorite superhero universe, right? But we have more than just Eric. I know that's hard to believe. But from Learn with Cisco, today we have Clarke, Jason Belk, and Kareem Iskander. And they bring a really interesting collective view of what's happening with AI for NetOps and what's going on here in this space. Before we jump in, I just want to make a reference to a previous episode that we did on Network Automation Nerds with Francois Kane. That would be NAN episode 95 on things that have been happening in the Cisco Cert program. That's good reading if you want to go, or good listening if you want to go back and give that a listen. But this august group from Learn with Cisco has offered to take us through what's happening with what they see in terms of AI skill acquisition for senior certified network engineers like CCIEs and probably others. So let's do the right thing first. I'd love you guys to just introduce each of yourselves. And Joe, why don't we start with you?
Okay. Hi, my name is Joe Clarke. I'm a distinguished engineer in the Learn with Cisco group. I've been at Cisco now just almost 27 and a half years. CCIE, DevNet expert. I started in Cisco and TAC in network management. So I've always been kind of an operations person. From there, I went into more programmability and automations. When Cisco started unleashing or unveiling things like the embedded event manager and Tickle scripting in iOS, that was the technology I went after. Then we did things like 1PK, where we started to open up APIs into our devices. We acquired TailF, got into the Yang and seriously into the NetConf game. I've been involved in the Internet Engineering Task Force in the operations space. I co-chair the Ops Area Working Group there, and I work closely in the NetMod Working Group. I practice network operations and automation. I am the lead for automation and the switching side of the network for all IETF meetings for our Network Operations Center. And I lead the data center and the network monitoring side of things for Cisco Live Europe. So the network we deploy once a year there. This next year is going to be in Amsterdam. So I practice what I preach. I like to do so. I like to get my hands dirty or understand things if I'm going to talk about them. So I do stay active in the doing of network operations, network automation, and how that paradigm or how that's shifting and evolving as new technologies come in.
Cool. And just to be clear, that always struck me about your profile and some of the conversations we've had before this. You are very hands-on. You are still doing real stuff, not just, Cisco Live Europe. But I think that brings a really important aspect to this discussion. And I should point out explicitly there was an ask from a Packet Pushers listener that basically asked for you directly, Joe Clarke, to be part of a discussion like this. No disrespect to anybody else on the call. They didn't ask for me. They didn't ask for Eric, but you were called out there, Joe. So thanks for being here. Kareem,
thanks for having me.
You bet. You have the stage, Kareem.
I'm not sure how I could follow an introduction after Joe's intro. I mean, when I grow up, I want to be just like Joe. But I'm Kareem Iskander. I'm a principal engineer at Learn with Cisco. I lead the technical advocacy team here for the organization. And I've been with Cisco for 17 years and some change. My career started in TAC as well, but I was on the developer side building internal tools for TAC engineers. I think that's kind of like the early stage for me getting into networking, where I think I got my CCNA back in 2007, 2008 when I first started Cisco. Dabbled in a bunch of roles, but I really grew up in, and I like to say that I grew up in DevNet. Cisco was starting the whole programmability. Network engineers need to move from the CLI to automation, and we were in a position to, with my developer background, getting pulled into DevNet as one of the first developer advocates as part of the organization. Back when Susie Wee was recruiting the team. So I was lucky enough to get in on the ground floor there, and we did some really cool stuff with DevNet. Fast forward 7 years later, I moved to the certification group, and I wanted to get more in depth of our certification and build out a technical advocacy to advocate for the learners, to advocate for our content, and to just help our community upskill on new tech. And this is, Jason and I work together for about 4.5 years now. So it's a really great gig, and I have a lot of fun just trying to understand and learn new technology and being able to give back to the community and put the content out there to help engineers upskill and leverage the tools that we give them.
Cool. Well, that you teed up your next colleague very, very well. Last but in no way least, Jason Belk. Who are you and why are you here?
Sure. Hi, I'm Jason Belk. I'm a senior technical advocate with Kareem on the Learn with Cisco team. I've worked with him since, like I said, 2021, helping connect the dots between what's going on in learning and the average network engineer or other engineers out there. My background is I came from Cisco IT. I started my career as an intern at Cisco almost 15 years ago. And I started my networking career getting my CCNA, getting my certification, getting into the network operations team. So instead of supporting external customers like TAC, like my two colleagues, I was supporting Cisco's internal networks, so our campus and branch offices, troubleshooting wireless issues, WAN uplinks, labs, and stuff like that. And I started working more on the automation side pretty quickly. This is right before DevNet started. And I was starting to teach my colleagues as I was learning myself about NetMiko, Ansible, Cisco NSO, which was relatively new at the time. And from that passion of just trying to share my knowledge, my excitement, feeling the pain points of being an operator who's on call and trying to learn this stuff in between closing tickets. That's basically what's been formative in my experience in coming to a conversation like this. I had a brief stint at Network to Code, so I had some experience seeing outside the Cisco bubble how things are done from an automation perspective. And then I came back to Cisco and now developer relations in the NSOBU, and now, like I said, within the Learn with Cisco team. And so it's been a great experience in terms of both inside Cisco, outside Cisco, and just trying to both, from my personal experience, feeling that operator pain from automation, now moving towards AI.
Yeah. Well, I think that's how I first came across you was posts on Twitter with you being really deliberate and sharing stuff. And that's how we got connected, I think, last year.
Correct.
So, look, I'm really excited about this conversation. And yes, it's very Cisco-centric, but I think a lot of what we're talking about here is applicable to other cert programs and just skill acquisition in general. So let's start with the basic concept of, what are the skills that network engineers need to layer on as AI tooling, becomes more useful and more prevalent in what we're doing. We can think about it in levels CCNA, CCNP, CCIE. You can draw your own equivalencies to other cert programs. Just for full disclosure, I was very involved in the Juniper cert program. I'm a JNCIE emeritus. That and $5 will get you an extra large coffee at Dunkin'. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of my Cisco training heritage as well. I've got to see a lot and do a lot over time. But let's talk about how, we are all figuring out how we need to adapt and grow as network engineers with all this new tooling. Eric, we're just coming out of AutoCon 4 in Austin, November 25 at this recording. You did a lightning talk on, models and what models are best for NetOps functions. I won't steal your thunder. And if people weren't there, they should go watch the recordings. But I just want to open this up. What does it mean to be a CCIE, JNCIE in the age of AI? Who wants to take it first? I'll leave it open. We'll throw it in the arena and see who gets there first.
I'd love to hear Joe's insights on this.
Well done. Well played, Kareem. Excellent.
Yeah,
Joe, what do you think?
Appreciate that. What does it mean to be a certified network, expert or senior engineer? Well, it has always meant that you have to keep up with change.
Sure.
It's not that networking, even operations or management has stayed stagnant. There are still obviously legacy, or there are things that have existed for many years that you have to be familiar with. In the ops space, despite everyone's best effort, SNMP is still around, so you have to be familiar with that. In the
I've been trying to turn SNMP off for 15 years, so
and no one will let you.
That's right.
In general networking space, there's this thing called IP that won't go anywhere. IPv4, in fact, won't go anywhere. So there's things you always have to be familiar with, and we can't lose sight of the fundamentals. But someone who considers himself an expert, and this is one thing that when we were designing the DevNet expert, now the CCIE automation, that we came to terms with. Networking doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be super complex. But what makes an expert sometimes is an ability to see a bigger picture and to be able to context switch between multiple technologies within a short amount of time to achieve a ultimate solution to a problem, or realize different potential pitfalls in a design. And so the experts become the one who can adapt as needed. And that may mean that a new variable came in, maybe it's not even a technical variable. Maybe it's more of a business or political layer 8 variable that they have to consider. And they're able to do that. They're able to shift their thinking. They're not rigid enough to say, well, no, this is how it has to be. Like, okay, well, given that, let's shift a little bit and achieve this. Or maybe it is a technical variable. Maybe it is a new technology that they have to incorporate into their design. AI being the latest shiny technology and object, comes at us in several ways, one of which, if we are thinking about the design of our network, especially if we're in today the data center realm, though tomorrow it could be inferencing, could be pushed more out towards the edge into the campus, we have to think, okay, how do we, knowing that things are still in flux, how would we go about realizing the political pressure that we might be facing, build out a data center or augment our data center, refresh our data center in a way that can accommodate whatever we want to start doing with AI, and it's not going to be completely wasted investment. And then you look at AI from that's how we might build the network for AI. What about how we are leveraging AI in our daily operations space? And what we're seeing and what we've folded into our certifications is around what would that engineer, that senior engineer, that expert, what should they be doing with AI? And certainly you should lead with responsibility. You should lead with critical thought. Those are things that make us human, and those are the things that make us valuable when we use something like AI. And then you look at what are the technologies that I should be doing. Yeah, at all levels, maybe there's a little bit of the prompt engineering aspect. But then at the senior level, it's how would I incorporate this that in some way that isn't just a game show, some way that isn't just the dog and pony thing that's going to make my manager smile. How would we make this real and useful? Sure. And then you look at automation plus AI, how would I do that? Well, there's this thing called model context protocol. There's building out the beginnings of an agentic operations layer that we're doing. And maybe that helps us get to some of our automation goals because it kind of abstracts the rigidity of APIs and makes things a little bit more user friendly from a natural language perspective. And it's that expert mindset that can start to not only play with this, but can start to strategically figure out what is the thing that we should be doing, how should we be doing it, and how do we bring our organization along with it.
Yeah, I love your emphasis on responsibility and starting with responsibility. You're still Tony Stark in the Iron Man suit. You're still responsible for where you're flying. You've just got some excellent tooling to help you fly there. I want to come back to the other guests first, but Eric, I want to bounce this off you first too. I mean, you've got a perspective from Joe there. What else would you layer in on that? And don't worry, Jason and Kareem, I'll come back to you and you'll get your input on this too. But I want to put Eric on the spot, especially since he's got some stuff fresh in his mind from last week.
Yeah, I think for the most part, I do believe that AI is here to stay. So we're either on the train or we'll just be left without it. So it's not a matter of when or why, but rather it's just the how. And I have to say that learning about AI intensively for the last 3 months is the most difficult topic for me to learn. And mostly because it's so broad, so fast. And I tell you, when I was learning about BGP, it doesn't make me question my own humanity, but AI does. So I think that's a tough topic in itself. And I want to, kind of credit Cisco for doing all the certification, because I remember when I was learning about network engineering that I don't know where to start. And the learning path and the topics that they list out from, all the various topics indicates the light that leads me toward that destination I want to be. So I am, interested in how they came to the topic, and second on why they decide on those topics.
So Jason, let's bounce it to you now. Like, not necessarily, a specific rebuttal or follow on to Eric, but what else are you seeing from a, skills requirements perspective? Maybe Eric's comment on Cisco's always found a way to have a good place to start, right? And even though CCIE was first, you went and backfilled with CCNP and CCNA, helping fill out those paths. What are you doing right now from what are you seeing need for to help network engineers get started with AI?
No, for sure. I'm sure Kareem will fill out some of the points as well. But I think from a skills perspective, I'd say there's two aspects that come to mind for me. One are the parts of the job that most people don't think of as a network engineer. It's like you're still having to close tickets. You're still having to draft emails to clients. You're still having to do, IPAM adjustments and all these other tool sets that are not actually configuring CLI on a router, which is only a subset of what engineer is. So I'd say AI definitely augments and improves all those aspects, where the skills would be prompt engineering, AI safety, understanding, what data you're able to put in these systems and where it's hosted. And then I'd say the second is not just making a faster horse of us, taking existing processing and doing it in an AI way, but how are you as an engineer reimagining the overall workflows now that we have these new capabilities and systems with something like MCP, which I know Kareem's done a lot of good blog posts and other content recently as well.
Cool. So Kareem, take that and run with it.
Yeah, I think the team here just covered pretty much everything that from a skill set perspective that you need from an AI in this AI era. But I think I'm going to emphasize on something, especially at the IE level, at the expert level. I feel like today your core skills are more important than before, because you have AI as your sidekick, but those core skills that you have, you can't leverage that new tool without them. AI is really smart and is really good at convincing you that the output it's giving you is correct. And without your core skills, if you're going in blindly and you're trying to automate, you're trying to build a script, you're trying to work on a new workflow for your organization, without knowing the pieces and bits that go into it and understanding how they operate and applying those skills to the prompt or even deciphering the output, you're going to get a lot of misinformation. And I've seen it firsthand. And I think this is where I keep saying this, and I talk to a lot of our customers when we meet with them at Cisco Live, and they're like, so what should I do? I think today you have to actually make it a point to go out and sharpen your core skills as opposed to relying on the AI, because AI can make you lazy and stupid if you follow it blindly. And this is, and I think Joe and I talked about this also previously, where for myself, right now, I am actually doubling down on my networking skills, and I'm reading books more than before because I need to get depth into these the networking skills. Sure, the developer skills come easy, but I don't have the depth in networking skills, and I want to be able to leverage AI with my depth to do better. And I think that's doubling down on the core skills is something that's really important for me.
That's a really interesting and for me unexpected response, but it resonates, right? And your point about using AI tooling can make you lazy. You're right, and I think the first generation of like my last year and a half of watching the generative AI tools maybe take a little too much of my trust initially, and then find, no, that's not right at all. Going back and editing outputs, right? Healthy skepticism of model outputs and tool outputs is really useful based on those core skills. Like, how to subnet IPv4. Right. Large language models aren't really great at stuff like that. So, well, let's pivot to changes in the CERT programs, right? And again, Network Automation Nerds episode 95 talks a lot about, the major announcements. Let's go into that next level of detail with you three. Joe, you teed this up perfectly in your initial response. The number one task of engineers has been adaptability. And certainly CERT programs need to adapt as technologies evolve too. Let me put it to you two, so what's happening with your CCNA, CCNP, CCIE levels to work in different elements of AI operations? And I'll leave it to any one of you to start on that one.
We're taking a quick break from the podcast because Packet Pushers is partnered with NANOG, the North American Network Operators Group, one of the premier NOGs on the planet. The format, it is educational talks from people who are on the cutting edge of networking, along with social events and a peering forum. You can get some human networking done while you're there. If you want to meet me, I'm going to be at the Beer and Gear social event myself, armed with all of these stickers you could possibly want. I really like NANOG. You're getting hands-on practical knowledge from people that have done it, are doing it, or who are figuring out how to do it. The content is by and for engineers. You're hearing from people you might not otherwise have access to. You get to talk to them afterwards, which is kind of cool. The hallway track is pretty awesome. NANOG is big brain solving big problems, and you're there right in the thick of things. I have this sense when I'm at NANOG of things are happening here. It's pretty cool. NANOG 96 coming up next, right? Accepted topics include BGP stuck routes, scaling network operations with Ansible, holistic network operation, why RPKI adoption is a pretty hard thing to do, and more topics with a focus on AI and network infrastructure. Register for NANOG 96 at nanog.org. Click on the events link and you can figure out the rest from there. It's pretty straightforward. Again, nanog.org. And I will see you in San Francisco, February 2nd through 4th, 2026. And now back to the discussion.
Okay, I guess I'll go again.
Yeah.
We spent a little bit of time talking to the last time we changed the CCNA as an example. We did the same thing. We talked to people who hire network engineers. We talked to network engineers themselves, and we tried to get a picture of what are I mentioned not the dog and pony, we're checking the AI box, but the skills that really are needed. Like, what are people being asked for in interviews respective to AI at different levels?
Sure.
And with and we found that they are being asked already, because companies are in this, they see, Eric mentioned it's probably not going away. They see that they're getting pressure. Their customers are wanting experiences. Maybe they're not asking for AI, but they're wanting experiences. Their promise that leadership is selling is cost effectiveness, is increased productivity. So they want their engineers to, at all levels, to have some appreciation for AI. And we said, okay, well, these are the things that your junior engineer needs to have. And Kareem's point is very much applicable. And it's actually a worry of ours is how do you keep the pipeline of junior engineers going?
Sure.
You don't want them just to come in and be just people in a seat who are talking to ChatGPT. You want them to have that basic fundamental understanding. And more importantly, you want them to have that critical thinking ability to say, what is this right? Yeah, it thinks it's right, but do I think it's right? So we're looking at not just the technical, but the soft skills. And we want to see, okay, what's applicable to like the CCNA? What kind of knowledge of again, the responsibility of AI, of not only validating the output, but being very cognizant of what they're putting in and the level of sensitivity with that data, how to ask the right questions, some of the prompt engineering aspects. And then you move up into the more senior certifications, and it is getting towards how do I construct elements of either AI infrastructure, if that's where we're looking at, like what does inferencing or training within the network require if we're going to build a network of GPUs? What kind of latency requirements and reliability requirements do we have? What are protocols doing like Rocky V2 in the data center infrastructure? And then on the usage side, you've got, well, do you understand what this model context protocol is? Could you build an MCP server? What are the ramifications with connecting agents together? And it varies. Like, for example, in the automation space, we're looking at, can you actually code this? And in something like the collaboration space, we're looking at how can you tweak or fine tune some of the AI capabilities that are given to you based on data within your organization. So that brings in elements like vector databases, retrieval augmented generation, so that you are making the most productive use out of AI. And we test this. So how do we know that we're doing the right thing? Well, we ask others. Our certification building is very robust. We follow Bloom's taxonomy in terms of documenting the verbs and the cognitive complexity of things. Yeah. We have multiple reviews of people who are in the room building the test, people out of the room who are considered a subject matter expert, and people outside of Cisco who are considered subject matter experts. So we feel like our tests are both fair and capturing what the market needs, what the industry needs.
So Joe, it almost seems like there's two aspects of it. One is the user of AI, and you want to fully utilize the tools that you have at hand. But one aside is the builder, where you're building the infrastructure or you're integrating your data into whatever existing tool that is. So how do you see the spectrum of both the user and the builder into that certification program?
I'm going to keep talking.
I think we cover, and I'm happy to cover that. I think that our certification program in general covers it all. From the builder, depending on if you're coming in as a builder or if you're coming in as an AI user. It also covers the entry to expert. I know we're talking about at the expert level for specifically in this conversation, but we do realize that there is a shift in the market where everything is moving towards AI. That, and Joe mentioned this, where there is like the entry level gap that's going to slowly happen, and therefore your junior network engineers are not going to be skilled enough to get to that expert level, and we're aware of this. And so how do we fill in that gap, and what do we need to do? And this is a conversation that we have internally often, and we started by prepping the junior network engineer from a NetACAT perspective, getting in AI plus networking in the NetACAT classrooms, realizing teaching our NetACAT instructors, what is it that's real from an AI perspective for the next generation of network engineers. So we're taking them into that journey, and then we're going next into, hey, okay, so you've gone through the basic training of AI, plus you have, maybe a CCST or maybe a networking, a CCNA, how about what's the next stop for at a practitioner level from an AI perspective? And we've recently introduced AI Tech, our latest certification, which is kind of in between that entry, the CCST early in career, and the CCNA level network engineer, to give you a taste of what AI is and what's relevant to you as a network engineer. And then we're taking them on that journey from NP and IE and everything that's basically Joe has just covered. So we do realize, and obviously I'm talking from a certification perspective, but with the certification, it comes to training, right? And so we do have that attached training to it to make sure to say, hey, look, we're teaching you the skills today, but we also want you to validate it via our certification tracks. And we want your employer to basically look at that certification and say, hey, Kareem Iskander is AI Tech certified, or Kareem Iskander has his automation professional as well. So that is the kind of the journey that we're taking our learners on.
And I'll add to that. I think especially in the age of AI, these certifications are critical, because if you think about it, you're sitting in a room with no notes, no AI agent to tell you the answers. That shows you, it proves to an employer what I'm able to bring to the table as my expertise and my knowledge. And like Kareem said, we have coming out very soon. I'm not sure when this will be released, but in the December 2025 timeframe, we have the Cisco AI Technical Practitioner certification, which I think anyone from a CCNA, CCST, all the way up to CCNP, who are just interested in what are the basic skills for AI. And of course, we're also updating existing certifications. Like we've included AI components in the CCNA for the networking, CCNP automation, that includes MCP, as well as on our Cisco data center specialists. So if you're doing on the networking side, we have an AI specialist certification for the CCNP data center. So across our different portfolio, depending on what area of expertise, whether you're doing data center, networking, automation, or you're just entering in the career, we have something for you. And if you're already an expert in those different areas, we'd love to have you take a look at the Cisco AI Technical Practitioner certification, which is basically from our end, our first AI dedicated certification, even though we're sprinkling it across the other ones as well.
Yeah, so taking everything that you just said in this last round of discussion, obviously you guys have been a leader in network certifications for a very long time. Let's call it 30 years at this point. And I started with ICRC, ACRC, and I had to make the transition to ICND. And obviously things have grown and changed over that time. But I remember very clearly, there was stuff that I was learning in my CCNA, CCNP, CCIE work that helped me with my Bay Networks routers at the time. I know that's a name people haven't heard in a long time. But even though I was learning Cisco CLI specific stuff, it gave me transferable skills for other platforms too. You just had to learn how to translate. I see this as another inflection point where there's a lot of what you're talking about in terms of using AI tooling for NetOps that is broadly applicable. There's going to be various Cisco specific bits, but without having looked at any of this in depth on my own, I get the sense that, if I were trying to roll out Sonic in my data center, there's still a lot that I could use from what you all are talking about that'll help me operate other network infrastructure as well. Fair statement? You want to push back on that? How do you guys react to that?
No, I think I can take this one. I think that's a very fair statement in general. I think it applies in today's timeline from an AI perspective. It applied when we started off on the network automation journey back in 2014.
Sure.
We taught basic Python, right? We taught the network engineer how to code in Python and to import the specific libraries using request library, how to call an API. All of this is not Cisco specific, right? You could take that and you can go to any any other network provider and leverage the same libraries, the same Python, the same everything. And that still applies today in the AI world. When we talk about, Joe mentioned talking about MCP in our certifications at different levels, right? At the NP level, we talk about MCP from how to use it, what the heck it is, and how does it integrate with the network, right? When we're teaching MCP and we're talking about what the protocol is, that we're teaching you how to build an MCP server for your network. We're teaching you the first step to agentic AI. Those teachings and what we're certifying is very valid to anywhere else, because at the end of the day, it's an MCP protocol exposes tools to a service that the API, the network has, and in a sense of APIs. So if you're exposing that from a Cisco box or Juniper box or whatever box it is, it doesn't matter. You're building the same thing, right? And so it's very transferable.
Well, I didn't make him say that, by the way. I didn't no requirements on
that. Was anybody. For you, Scott. That one was just for you, Scott.
All right, I'll take it. I appreciate it. I've had the privilege of being able to do a lot of stuff in my career, and I'm grateful for all of it. Cisco days included. So on that point, before we run out of time, I kind of want to touch on two other big topics. What does it mean to use agents? And I think you guys have some interesting things happening there. And I want to talk about specific models and their utility as well. But on the agent discussion, we're in this time of incredible experimentation, right? Where very motivated people, like Eric in particular, and others like him, are going and playing with, developing their own agents that call to MCP servers to get certain things done. I do think that the majority of enterprises actually consuming and employing agents are going to come via the form of platforms. I think you guys have some stuff going on there. Kareem, I know you mentioned it in some of our prep. Do you want to talk to that specifically about what you are doing there?
Yeah, I'll briefly mention it. And I think Joe is involved as well, and I'd like him to keep me honest here. But Cisco is introducing, I believe it's in February, a platform, agent platform called AI Canvas. And although we're on the learning side, we integrate with the AI Canvas business entity or BU around what's coming and how we can prep the market for them and their announcement. But AI Canvas will essentially come in with pre-built agents that will allow you to connect your different Cisco data sources. It will bring in Meraki dashboard. It will bring in Splunk, and you'll be able to query the agent to say, hey, tell me from an operation perspective what's going on with my network, build me dashboards, and so forth. My understanding is there are different agents within AI Canvas that connect to different models that are trained on the network. They're network models trained on Cisco data. And so I know one of them, Joe, you want to expand a little bit on the deep network model here, since you've been involved closely?
Sure. So if any of you are out there are CCIEs, you probably got an invitation a few months ago to join this alpha on the deep network model. It was announced at Cisco Live in San Diego as the backing, or one of the backings that Kareem mentioned, for AI Canvas. And it is, just before that, we released a foundational model for security that's actually open source. You can get it in Hugging Face. It's kind of like that, where we trained an off-the-shelf open source model with a lot of network-specific data, things like RFCs, our technical documentation, some of our white papers, and we call them Cisco validated designs, so design specs, so that you could ask this. We created the alpha, the CCIEs got was a chat interface. So we created a chat interface. On top of this, you could ask it questions about network design, about network functionality, network configuration. It would give you answers there. And the intent was to let CCIEs play with this, give us some feedback, and then we want to make this better so that it can form a very powerful underpinning to this AI canvas, so that when the Splunk or the Thousand Eyes data points to network-centric issues, then the models or the agents running on those models can invoke APIs at the network level. Could be Meraki dashboard, could be something like Catalyst Center, and figure out, okay, what's happening here in the network? Pulling out the network telemetry data, pulling out the operational show command output, to use an old CLI thing, and say, this is what looks to be happening in the network, and pinpoint or attempt to pinpoint a root cause there. Whether or not this becomes another foundational model that we release in open source is yet to be determined. But we see that there's a lot of value, and it's not just Cisco. Other domain areas are seeing that smaller, more refined, fine-tuned, or specifically trained models, even if they're not truly founded, meaning even if you're not coming up with a brand new model from scratch, even if you're just fine-tuning one of the off-the-shelf ones, there's a lot more value in that, because you can reduce hallucinations, you can keep things very focused in the area you want. And this is where now you start to have this team or army of agents that are working with, as Kareem mentioned, different of these little models that can come together and form something that's very powerful, or give you a true team feeling that you're getting from AI, kind of this more than the sum of its parts.
Sure. Yeah, I can see scenarios where, and I say this very carefully, but if I have well-trained models like this that are very specific, to a network domain or set of network domains, and a syntax for operating a set of network elements, that can enable troubleshooting, at some levels by agents, right? And I'm not a doom and gloomer with this is going to get rid of a whole bunch of jobs, but we've lived lives of disruption, and all of us here on this call. And I think network engineers need to be thinking about, okay, what does that look like for me? And how do I shift a mindset to, now I have, a deep network model or something similar, and it's going to enable me to do certain things, maybe even clear my backlog a lot more quickly, so I'm less stressed when I go home at the end of the day, and I'm not making this up, right? What kind of impacts do you all foresee on this front?
Before you get there, something you said, we've seen concrete examples of things that look really, really good, and in fact, in a different context, could be the right answer. So to your point, it's not doom and gloom. I'm using this as a knowledgeable, troubleshooting, capable engineer, like a TAC engineer. And we see 100%. Our own TAC doing this to say, let me look at this. AI pointed out that this could be a problem. Let me not just copy and paste that to the customer. Let me take a deeper look. And so you're absolutely right. The people who will use it effectively aren't the copy and pasters. They're the ones who say, yep, this is helping me get through all the noise, get to what's valuable, get to something I may have missed, and allow me to dig deeper in some cases.
For sure.
Yeah. And I'd say asking the right questions and speeding up that time to resolution where I know at one point, Cisco IT, we were working, troubleshooting ACL lines on a firewall that had thousands, if not tens of thousands of ACLs. And, as a human, you can only do so much stare and compare. And automation is good at, getting things on there. But what if you're like, okay, we want to actually clean this up? Which ones are we actually using? And you can do some log reports. And then I think from that side, that's where your knowledge comes in, be able to have the right questions being asked and actually making changes at scale, especially in these larger networks, whether that's a large enterprise, service provider, or government, that it just wasn't feasible for them as an engineer to be able to mentally synthesize all these different pieces of data without some other outside force being able to bubble up the important bits.
For sure.
So what I'm really hearing from everybody here is, and I like feeling validated, core skills, right? Core skills are still important and more important than ever. So that's the takeaway for me from all of this.
That's my gift to you, Kareem. Reciprocity, right? Core skills are always going to matter for sure, and the nature of how we get stuff done will change with the tools that we have available.
But it's changed, right? It changed with automation as well. Back then, we were talking about automation. We still are talking about automation. I don't want to make it seem like it's not an important topic. Our skills just shifted a little bit while maintaining our core skills. And we're shifting yet again here with AI. I think that's, it's definitely like you said, Scott, it's not this doom and gloom where AI, just because we have a platform of agents, it doesn't mean that my job is irrelevant. I think it's more your job is streamlined and more relevant now, today.
Yeah, I agree. Eric, I want to give you a chance to chime in on this too, again, with some of the model focus stuff that you did in that excellent presentation in Austin. I'm sorry, I just had to give you kudos for that. But any other comments or questions from you on that particular aspect of all this?
Well, I think it just the context matters, right? So the models or whichever foundation model that you pick, they're already getting to a point that they're so good that they're very capable. But the difference is the context. So I'm looking forward to the deep network model that's coming out with enough context so that it's not just snippets of chats that you could get an answer from, but rather just taking the holistic view of something that you haven't even thought about, but the context is there. So you could ask the right question and you can make the right decision based on the feedback. So you still need the core skill. And I love what Kareem talked about, that it's just the force multiplier. So, you want to make sure that source is correct. So pick your source carefully. And that applies to learning path where, you're trying to learn something new and you're trying to you put your trust into somebody that picked those topics for you. And, looking forward to those topics that you guys coming out to identify what are the important ones that we should double click on and what are the scope that we need to learn into. And I feel that's always the Cisco's gift to the community, where it's like, hey, here are the topics and you don't have to go through the training, but here are the topics that you might want to focus on.
And in addition to the training and the certifications that we talked about, our team releases what are called Cisco U tutorials that are freely accessible to anyone. Even if you don't have a Cisco U subscription, we have them on security, cloud, networking, AI, covering MCP, prompt engineering across the board. And we're continuing to release new ones every month. So I'd say that's one practical step. If someone's like, oh man, this seems overwhelming, or I'm not sure where to start, or I don't have budget yet, I need to prove it to my management, that's where you can get some validated skills for your step. These are step-by-step instructions. They tell you how to get it set up, anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour. So all the people on this call, are contributing to that, as well as people in the broader Cisco community.
So that's a perfect way to bring us around the final corner here, Jason. I'm going to call that your call to action, what to take away here. I'll also rely on you to make sure we have all the right links for the show notes. I think you've already populated some of them here in the prep doc. So thank you for that. Let's give Joe and Kareem in sequence a chance to wrap it up, and then we'll bring the episode to a close. Joe, what else should we be thinking about? Like, if there's one takeaway for listeners from what we've talked about today, what's important to you?
Two things, because you asked for one, so I'm going to give you two.
Of course.
This will not be the last change. And I know that maybe it feels like it right now because that's what everyone is pushing. But this will not be the last change that you see. We thought about automation. Before that, there was a shift from pole-based stuff like SNMP to telemetry. Before that, the network transformed with like voice over IP and video over the network. So this won't be the last change. The other thing is, you might be skeptical because this feels like it's being forced upon you, maybe where you are. But there is one thing you can do, and that is put aside the skepticism for a second. What is the one thing that you can do that will take this, that you can internalize this? What is the one thing you can do around AI that you're going to go learn tomorrow? It doesn't have to be big. Jason mentioned the tutorials. Go take one of the tutorials. Take something bigger, that AI tech practitioner. That's just training. And it's not Cisco specific. It's just general training. What is that one thing you're going to commit to doing? Because we as network engineers should always be about one thing, and that is continuous learning. And even if you're skeptical, it's sometimes good to know what the enemy is thinking. It's sometimes good to know what the other side has.
Sure.
Go and learn something, even if you feel like it's bad. Go and learn something. Put yourself in that perspective so that you can talk more authoritatively about it. So you can truly weigh the good, the bad, the indifferent with it. and always take that action. Learn something new.
A lot of wisdom there. And Kareem, I've put you in the position of batting cleanup again, but you get to bring it home here.
I don't have much more than what the guys here covered. I think it is exactly what I was thinking. The only thing I'm going to say, and I'm going to leave it at that, is just stay curious. It's just stay curious. Take what you have out there, follow some of the leads in the market today around network automation, around AI, things like your podcast. Listen to that and just stay curious.
Yeah, I wrap this up for my clients in always be evaluating, like, and develop that discipline, and that's an institutionalization of being curious. So I couldn't agree with you more. Look, this has been great. I thank you all of you, Jason, Joe, Kareem, and of course the indefatigable Eric Chou. You brought a lot to this conversation today. Thanks so much. We'll make sure that pointer info is again in the show notes. Let me also thank our listeners. That we do this for you all, and we really appreciate you spending another time block with us on Total Network Operations. As you know, we're here on Packet Pushers, and there are lots of other great shows you can catch up on, like Heavy Networking, like Heavy Strategy, like Network Automation Nerds, and more. People like Eric and Joe and Jason and Kareem come and take their time. They make time available to share what they know, what they see in the market, and what's coming for us all in NetOps. So thank you all, guests and co-hosts, for being here, and thank you, Packet Pushers. Please send us your feedback. You can contact me via direct message on LinkedIn. I can't believe I just said direct message and not DM. Like everybody knows what a DM is. Or you can send us a follow-up note on packetpushers.net/follow-up. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time on Total Network Operations.